Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Charles Sebastian, and welcome you guys to another episode of the DREAMERSPRO show. We cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things and how we see it. So today we have a hell of a show in store for you guys. Before we get into it, please make sure you like the video and sub to the channel. So as you guys know, we published a bunch of shows yesterday on some of the allegations surrounding JJ Redick in terms of his use of some racial slurs. We produced a lot of shows and it brought out a range of opinions. Some people were happy that we were touching on it. Other people were like, why are you discussing this? And some people were like kind of in the middle, like, do I believe this? Do I not believe this? Etc. etc. But as I was going through some of the commentary, I noticed that there was this contingency of people out there that were like, don't talk about this. Don't talk about this. Don't talk about this. And I'm like, why? Why are you guys trying to curtail what I discuss? We discuss a whole bunch of frivolous things. There are no issues with that. So why can't we talk about JJ Redick? Number one. Number two, we've discussed this about other coaches or players that became coaches. So why should JJ Redick be exempt in any way, shape, or form? So in the midst of talking about him, I then began to think of one of the biggest voices on ESPN, which is Malika Andrews. Now, why did I start thinking about Malika Andrews? Well, Malika Andrews has a reputation for targeting men on ESPN, especially black guys. She's fond of just, trashing them on television. And there's been moments where, she made it her business, like quite literally her business, to go out of her way, literally, to go out of her way to dig up dirt on certain coaches or coaches that were going to become players or assistant head coaches that were going to eventually become NBA coaches. And she spared no expense in her investigation. And they all said that she did it. She did it. In the words of, we want to make sure the public has all the information about any particular candidate getting a head coaching job in the NBA. But there was one thing that she did about the current head coach of the Boston Celtics, the NBA champion head coach, Joe Mazzulla, that pissed a lot of people off. And this was this was right after he got promoted to the head coaching position for the Boston Celtics. She went out on ESPN and decided to do a segment where she basically brought up his past and to talk about all of the things that occurred in his past that had nothing to do with his current position right now. So what we want to do is want to play what Malika Andrews originally had to say about Joe Mazzulla. Take a listen to her here.
Woj, you reported that Joe Mazzulla will be the interim head coach here. You can see his resume on your screen. He's been a Celtics assistant coach the last 3 seasons after spending the previous 3 seasons at Fairmount State. And he played for West Virginia between 2006 and 2011, and now could become the NBA's youngest head coach at 34 years old. And we'd be remiss not to also mention that Mazzulla was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. He pled guilty, paid a fine, and then again in 2009 for domestic battery after an incident at Morgantown Bar. The domestic battery case never went to trial. It was settled in August of 2009. He paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, that was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So, Woj, why are the Celtics choosing him as their next head coach?
So you heard Malika Andrews. So that's her and Joe Mazzulla, right? So as I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, she did this about Joe Mazzulla. She did it also about Ime Udoka. So I'm like, really? She did? Well, if you guys remember, over a year ago, Malika Andrews and Stephen A. Smith got into this really heated exchange on television when the news initially dropped that the Boston Celtics were going to be suspending Ime Udoka eventually. Well, she was one of the people that was in the press conference. So she came on ESPN First Take to report what took place in the press conference. And in the midst of that, she basically tries to talk to Stephen A. Smith like as if he's some little boy on his own show, and basically saying that this information is pertinent to the audience and we must discuss Ime Udoka and he should be put front and center based on the allegations that came out at that time. So what we want to do is want to play exactly what Malika Andrews had to say to Stephen A. Smith on his show about Ime Udoka. Take a listen to Malika Andrews here.
Stephen A., with all due respect, this is not about pointing the finger. Stop. What became apparent to me in this press conference is that we do not have all of the information here. And it was frustrating to me that the Celtics declined to elaborate or to give more specifics about what exactly the rule breaking was that led us to this point. So that I just want to get that out of the way first. But to answer your question, Molly, I think what stood out to me, I think what stood out to me is that Brad Stevens, he was upset. That's what stood out to me about what he termed rampant Twitter BS is the word that he used, that women were unfairly dragged into this within the Celtics organization. You could see that Brad Stevens was visibly upset about this. And I also found that to be gross and unnecessary, that folks were bringing in the names and the images of women that is just not a fact. That was purely speculation. And so to me, that is what stood out. But the Celtics as an organization could have done more, and short of doing more ahead of this yesterday, they could have owned that responsibility in this press conference. I understand that there were legal parameters that they had to operate within for everybody involved, and I appreciate the fact that they brought in outside counsel and did a thorough organization. And I think that that is something that was clearly necessary in this situation. But the fact that it was able to go on all day, the fact that we are sitting here debating whether somebody else should have been suspended or not, we are not here, Stephen A., to further blame women. That is not why we are here.
So you heard Malika Andrews there talking to Stephen A. Smith about Ime Udoka. You heard how passionate she was about it. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, where's Malika Andrews on these JJ Redick allegations? Where is she? Now, some of you may say, well, the reason she's not saying anything about JJ Redick because none of this has been 100% confirmed. Was anything 100% confirmed by Ime Udoka? Did we have all the information? As a matter of fact, when the news dropped, we didn't even know the staff member he was involved with. And when Stephen A. Smith tried to bring it up, she then slapped his hand down and said, how dare you try to make this about women? So she didn't need all the information to go out there and give that information to the public. My question is, why aren't we hearing from her discuss this? Number one. Number two, in the vetting process of JJ Redick, why didn't we hear or see any segment from Malika Andrews talking about, hey, do you know back in college, JJ Redick was accused of using racial slurs against black women? Did you hear he was using some slurs against Asian, NBA fans? I never heard any of this investigative reporting from Malika Andrews. None of it. And my thing is, let's keep it fair and balanced. Let's keep it fair and balanced across the board. I want to react to some comments that some people made yesterday quickly. I got the reoccurring comment that, oh, you're making this about race. To the people that share that sentiment, I have to ask you the question. When you say I'm making it about race, what exactly do you mean? Because it seems like the person that made it about race here is JJ Redick. All I'm doing is reporting on it. Some events occurred that included some racial slurs, and I'm reporting on it. So how am I making it about race? Number one. Number two, if something is about race, you shouldn't say it's about race. Why? Why? Some people will say, well, this is a form of division. You should have spent that time emailing and messaging JJ Redick when he said those things allegedly. I never said it. The person who said it is the one that's guilty, not me. Not me. And finally, look, I'm going to go there because we're planning to open up another channel towards the end of the year where we're going to be discussing larger societal issues, and we're going to talk about politics a little. This is something that for those of you who follow the channel, know that I've steered clear politics because I hate it. But there are some things that are occurring in society that I do have some viewpoints on, and I'm getting tired of when I try to touch on these things from time to time on this channel here, the sports channel. We're being told you can't say this here, you can't say that. So I was like, okay, fine. It's a sports channel. People come here for sports. I understand. Let's create another platform where we can discuss that. And if people are interested in it, they can migrate over there. I understand. If we're going to keep this 100% sports, then we can discuss other things there 100%. And I can understand people that want that. And I totally get that. But I just want to quickly say this one thing. Some of you watching the show may say, well, we've been wondering, Charles, what do you consider yourself to be? Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? Are you a conservative? Are you a liberal? Are you an independent? Where do you stand? Here's where I stand. When I was a little bit younger, let me say in my 20s, I could have viewed myself somewhat as a liberal. when I left the United States back in 2011, the United States was a totally different place from a cultural standpoint. Throughout my time out of the United States, I've seen that if things have changed in a way that I can't understand. And in certain times, I can't even recognize the United States. I'm like, what has happened? What has happened? And as time has gone on, I've shifted towards the center. Then I became a parent. And once I became a parent, it no longer became about me and what I think. I also have to think about what's best for my child. And therefore, I went to the center and I went a little bit towards the right. A little bit, so I would say center, leaning a little bit towards the right. But that doesn't mean that I cannot examine issues on the left and the right and judge them dispassionately. As I said before, and I'm going to say it again, I agree with some things that people say on the right. I agree with some things that people say on the left. It's called being fair and having an open mind. I agree with both people. I don't get into the insults. Oh, liberals are this or conservatives. There are plenty of people out there to do it, and there are plenty of people that love that. I personally believe that really does nothing. I think what that does is it creates a wedge between people where it just further demarcates people and says, okay, you guys over here, we're over here, and we're just going to be throwing stones at each other across the fence. In the case of this, I just want to address this. If it means that if you're a conservative, for example, then you should not be able to address these issues, then you can't match me. You cannot include me in that group, because there's certain conservative views that I have, there's certain liberal views that I have. Overall, as a parent, I'm leaning a little bit more to the right, but that doesn't stop me from discussing these things. I'm not running away from these issues. We're all adults here. And if I feel a particular way about an issue, I'm going to talk about it. Whether it makes some people comfortable or not, I'm going to discuss it. And in the case here, I'm pointing out an incongruity that exists in the coverage of Malika Andrews, because she's the first one to jump up and start bringing up the history of Ime Udoka, Joe Mazzulla. All of these guys were coaching candidates. In the case of JJ Redick, we can't find her. And I'm saying that we need to see that same consistency from you, since you have made it a pattern of behavior. That's why I stand on the issue. That's the reason why I'm discussing it. Thank you guys for your attention. Once again, let me know what you guys thought about today's show. Whatever you guys think, leave your thoughts in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.